Imagine the sheer paralyzing terror of absolute silence.
Oh, man.
I really want you to put yourself there. Not like the peaceful quiet of a library or the calm of an empty room after a long day.
Right, nothing comforting.
No, I mean a deafening, unnatural, planetary void where life used to be. Every bird in the sky, every rat in the gutters, every breathing, laughing, crying human being in the metropolis just gone.
Completely erased.
Reduced to a fine, settling layer of red dust blowing through empty cobblestone streets.
Wow.
You look out over the sprawling city, and the only sound left on the entire planet is cold, indifferent, and perfectly synchronized. The rhythmic ticking of brass clockwork.
The grinding of gears.
Exactly, unfeeling gears. This was the vision of Father Karras, the Sanguine Metal Dawn, and you were standing just hours away from it becoming permanent reality.
It is a profoundly chilling image, precisely because it lacks the typical bombast of an apocalyptic event.
Yeah, there's no explosion.
Right, there is no fire raining from the sky, there is no grand celestial collision. It is a world simply sterilized.
Purged.
Exactly. Purged of the chaotic, unpredictable essence of life itself, leaving behind only the cold precision of a machine that, well, no one is left to turn off.
Welcome back to the deep dive on the Onyx Codex. Tonight, our mission is not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not.
We are not just flipping through pages of a dusty history book to look at the Metal Age. We are following a trail of rusted blood straight into the belly of the beast.
Soulforge Cathedral.
We are walking through those monolithic doors to witness a suppressed, terrifying historical conspiracy that nearly scrubbed the world clean of organic life.
The apocalypse that almost was.
And to truly grasp the sheer, suffocating scale of this threat, we have to look at the board exactly as it was set in those final desperate hours.
The tension across the city wasn't just palpable, it was at an absolute breaking point.
The city is essentially a powder keg, and the fuse isn't just lit, it's practically burned down to the casing.
Yeah.
Let's look at the sheer logistics of the chaos. Sheriff Gorman Truart is dead, murdered in his own estate.
Which is massive.
Right. This is the corrupt head of the City Watch.
Yeah.
The man who was secretly rounding up the city's vulnerable, the vagrants, the poor, the sex workers.
Feeding them into the Mechanists' horrifying industrial grinder.
Exactly. And with his assassination, the city's law enforcement apparatus is completely destabilized. It's headless.
Which creates a massive localized power vacuum. The streets are thrown into disarray, and the City Watch is entirely consumed with its own internal panic.
They're running around blind.
Right, and this is a critical tactical maneuver by the narrative because it perfectly obscures the real nightmare unfolding behind the closed doors of the high society parlors across the city.
While the cops are looking for a murderer in the alleys.
They are completely blind to the extinction-level event sitting in the wealthiest living rooms.
Think about how easily you accept a smart device into your home, because it offers convenience without ever really questioning the architecture of who is listening.
We do it all the time.
Now, imagine that sleek piece of technology is a lobotomized human being, fused with brass, hooked up to a biological weapon.
It's just horrific.
That is exactly what the city's elite willingly purchased. The elegant, golden-masked servants, these docile, mechanical-voiced attendants currently pouring wine and sweeping the floors in the mansions of the nobility.
They are walking time bombs.
Literally walking biological bombs.
They are the dark culmination of Karras' vision. And while they are being distributed, Karras himself has completely withdrawn.
He's hiding.
He is locked away inside the heavily fortified walls of Soulforge Cathedral. He is hours, perhaps minutes, away from broadcasting a citywide signal that will command every single one of those servants to release a payload of necrotic mutox.
But wait, let's look at the mechanics of this, because this isn't just like normal poison gas.
No, not at all.
If I breathe in standard toxic gas, I choke, I die, my body remains. Necrotic mutox doesn't do that. What is the actual chemical or biological process happening here?
It is an airborne, highly volatile catalytic agent specifically designed to react violently with complex organic cellular structures. When necrotic mutox makes contact with living tissue, it doesn't just asphyxiate the host. It rapidly oxidizes and breaks down the molecular bonds of flesh, bone, and plant matter.
Oh my God.
It initiates a catastrophic chain reaction that literally disintegrates organic material at a cellular level, converting it into that fine, red, rust-like particulate you described earlier.
Just absolute violent dissolution.
Exactly.
which leaves the fate of the entire world resting on the shoulders of the most unlikely, cynical savior imaginable, Garrett.
The master thief himself.
The man who just wants to pay his rent and be left in the shadows. He has been pushed to the absolute brink. His only viable option to stop total annihilation is a desperate alliance with Viktoria.
Which is wild.
Right. For those of us who know exactly what happened in the previous era, talk about a tense workplace dynamic.
Yeah.
We are talking about the Pagan dryad.
Yeah.
The creature who physically tore Garrett's eye from his skull.
The literal embodiment of the chaotic, untamed nature Karras is trying to eradicate. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is breathtaking.
Yeah.
This is the ultimate existential collision of absolute order versus absolute chaos. And the fulcrum of this conflict has come down to two outcasts.
A scarred, deeply cynical human variable.
And a primal force of blood and wood trying to throw themselves into the gears of a man who believes he has mathematically solved the flaw of human existence.
But how do you actually dismantle a conspiracy of this magnitude? I mean, you can't just pick a lock and steal a ledger.
It's way past that.
It requires unspooling a massive logistical web. It starts with a psychological descent into the heart of Mechanist ideology. We have to look at Angelwatch.
Angelwatch. The Mechanist Tower. It stands as a brilliant piece of environmental storytelling and architectural aggression.
It's a looming metal monolith that absolutely dominates the city skyline. But let's contrast this with the Hammerites, the order Karras splintered from.
Right, the builders?
The Hammerites built with heavy stone, thick wood, grounded arches. Their structures felt rooted deep in the earth, echoing with solemn, chanting choirs. Angelwatch is the complete antithesis of that.
Precisely. Angelwatch is Art Deco. It's all gleaming brass, sharp geometric lines, bright, harsh electric lights, and elongated, almost haunting guitar riffs echoing through metallic corridors.
It's so cold.
It is a monument to vertical arrogance. It is designed to physically look down upon the rest of the city, severing itself from the dirt and grime of the streets below.
It's the ultimate ivory tower.
Mm-hmm.
And what is happening at the very top of the spire while Garrett is scaling the outside? A lavish party.
Of course.
You have Lord Bafford, Lord Gavatius, the wealthiest elite of the city, mingling in the clouds, completely oblivious to the fact that the golden-masked servants handing them hors d'oeuvre are the instruments of their impending doom.
It's incredible irony.
They're literally toasting to the future while surrounded by their own executioners.
It is a striking sociological blind spot. But to understand how this happened, we have to analyze the pathology of the man who built that tower. Father Karras is not your standard-issue religious fanatic.
No, he's something else.
In modern terms, he is the ultimate tech bro accelerationist.
Okay, let's unpack this because it's a fascinating label. The Hammerites believed in using tools to shape the world, to build, to impose order on nature. The tool was an extension of the creator.
Right.
But Karras flips that entirely, doesn't he?
He takes that doctrine to a psychotic mathematical extreme. Karras believes the tool is inherently superior to the creator.
Wow.
He views human flesh, very specifically, including his own, as weak, sinful, rotting, and fundamentally corruptible. He wants to completely replace the unpredictable, messy reality of human biology with the sterile, flawless predictability of a machine.
And it clearly stems from such a deeply pathetic, narcissistic inferiority complex.
Absolutely.
Just listen to him. Karras has this peculiar, grating, nasal lisp of a voice. He is physically unimposing. You can so easily imagine him spending his formative years being mocked, bullied, or entirely dismissed by the traditional, booming, muscular, macho Hammerite priests.
He was the awkward, unrecognized genius holding a massive, festering grudge against the world. This raises a critical point about the pathology of authoritarian control. His past humiliations didn't just make him bitter, they fueled a lethal narcissistic God complex.
Right.
Because he couldn't connect with humanity, because he felt rejected by the biological hierarchy, he decided humanity itself was the flaw. Look at the children of Karras.
The steam-powered combat and worker robots.
Exactly, the ones patrolling his halls. What do they sound like?
They parrot pre-recorded lines of his exact voice.
Mm-hmm.
He literally built a mechanical echo chamber.
Exactly. He engineered a reality where he is the only voice of truth. He is the undisputed master of a perfectly obedient metallic flock that will never mock him, never question him, and never deviate from his programming.
But hold on, I have to push back on Karras' grand design here.
Okay, go ahead.
If his ultimate goal is to release necrotic Mutox and dissolve every single organic living thing into rust dust, how does he survive? Even if he seals himself in a bunker, he still needs to eat, right? He needs water. How does a purported mechanical genius completely overlook basic thermodynamics and ecology? He would just starve in his pristine metal box.
That is the ultimate paradox of the accelerationist mindset. The ideology completely eclipses practical logic.
It's pure delusion.
Karras is so consumed by his disgust for the organics that he views the elimination of life as a mathematical necessity, a purification. In his delusion, he likely believed that once the world was cleansed, the builder would grant him some form of mechanical ascension.
Or that his machines would magically sustain him.
Exactly. But the truth is, the hatred blinded the genius. He was engineering a mass suicide pact dressed up as divine salvation.
Which makes him all the more terrifying because you can't reason with a math equation that ends in 0.
You really can't.
So Garrett is navigating this nightmare. He tracks the Mechanists' top-secret Cetus project, which leads him to abduct Brother Cavador, the head of the operation.
A huge turning point.
Now, this kidnapping mission isn't just a physical challenge. It strips away the last illusions Garrett has about the Mechanists. Through Cavador's intelligence, Garrett uncovers the Cultivators.
The Cultivators are the missing mechanical link. These are the intricate devices being mass-produced and installed directly into the brass masks of the servants.
But let's explain how horrifying these Cultivators actually are. This isn't just like a gas canister strapped to someone's back. Think of it like an industrial cordyceps fungus. How does this thing actually interface with the human host?
It is a profound violation of biology. The cultivator isn't worn, it is integrated. The brass mass is heated and permanently fused to the subject's facial structure.
Ugh, that's brutal.
The installation process involves a mechanical lobotomy, severing the frontal lobe to eradicate free will, personality, and memory.
And then what?
The device then hijacks the host's central nervous system, replacing their conscious thought with a pre-programmed loop of subservience. Furthermore, the cultivator utilizes the host's own biological systems.
Like their breathing.
Exactly. Their body heat and respiratory mechanics are used to incubate the payload. The human lungs essentially become the bellows that will eventually disperse the necrotic mutox.
It's absolute body horror, masked as luxury. And Garrett follows the logistical trail of these cultivators straight into the manor of Lord Gervasius.
A really tense sequence.
This is where the sheer dread truly sets in for you as you're experiencing it. Garrett is sneaking through this lavish, beautiful estate, navigating around priceless art and opulent carpets. And he realizes the Mechanists are installing these cultivators right here.
Right in the open.
They are using the nobility's own estates as forward operating bases to arm the servants.
Yeah.
The trap is already sprung. The bombs are already inside the house, dusting the bookshelves.
It's a masterclass in tension. The apocalypse isn't an invading army marching on the city gates. It's already standing in the corner of your dining room, waiting for a radio frequency.
Okay, let's unpack this. How did an entire society blind itself to this industrial nightmare just for the sake of convenience and luxury?
It's a great question.
I mean, the Mechanists literally waged a public genocidal campaign against the Pagans, clear-cutting forests and slaughtering people, and the city's elite just looked the other way.
Wow.
Why? Because they got a shiny new toy out of it.
Well, the allure of technological convenience and absolute safety is a potent narcotic. The Mechanists offered unprecedented progress. They provided clean electric light, automated defense systems, and subservient free labor.
It was too good to pass up.
The elite were so intoxicated by the comfort and the status these innovations provided that they willingly invited their own executioners into their homes.
That arrogance is astounding.
They operated under the arrogant assumption that their wealth, their titles, and their high stone walls made them immune to the consequences of Karras' extremism. They viewed the Mechanists' violence against the Pagans as a feature, not a bug.
Just a sterilization of the undesirables.
Exactly, one that secured their own elevated position.
They bought the newest, most invasive piece of tech without reading the terms and conditions, and the cost was their lives. So the infrastructure is in place. The servants are distributed across the city. The cultivators are loaded and primed with necrotic mutox.
Everything is set.
The only thing missing is the broadcast signal to trigger the chain reaction, and that signal emanates from one place, Soulforge Cathedral. To stop the broadcast, Garrett has to go inside.
This transition represents a massive psychological and narrative shift. The entire game has been about infiltrating spaces meant for human habitation, mansions, banks, police stations. Soulforge is fundamentally different.
Alien.
Garrett is entering an environment entirely hostile to his existence.
Let's paint a picture of this place. If you hear the word cathedral, you think of a hushed, reverent sanctuary. High vaulted ceilings, stained glass, quiet contemplation.
Peaceful.
Soulforge is none of those things. It is a sensory nightmare. When Garrett slips through those heavy doors, he steps into a deafening, scorching, hot, relentlessly grinding automated factory.
It's oppressive.
The heat is suffocating. The air tastes like copper and ozone. There's not a single human soul inside. No priests chanting. Only the relentless pounding of massive hydraulic presses, rivers of molten slag, and the metallic clanking of the children of Karras patrolling the catwalks.
What's fascinating here is the architectural philosophy. Karras has built his own heaven on Earth, and it is a perfectly closed loop of logic and steel.
A perfect machine.
He has eliminated all variables. There are no human guards to bribe, no human guards to distract with a thrown bottle, no human fatigue to exploit. It represents the utter sterilization of the world he desires on a macro scale, achieved first on a micro scale within these walls.
And think about the evolution of Garrett's character in this exact moment. He's not creeping around a nobleman's bedroom looking to pocket a gold goblet or some loose change to pay his landlord.
No, the stakes have peaked.
He's a saboteur. He's a lone, fragile, fleshy wrench throwing himself into the churning gears of a bleeding god machine. The atmosphere is thick with sheer desperation. Every shadow he attempts to hide in is violently illuminated by a furnace flare. Every footstep he tries to muffle is swallowed by the rhythmic slamming of industrial machinery.
And his objective is monumentally complex. He isn't there to simply assassinate Karras. Karras is locked inside a hermetically sealed, impregnable vault within the apse of the cathedral.
You can't even get to him.
Right, so Garrett has to manually traverse the sprawling factory floor, physically rerouting the signal towers. He has to change the frequency so that when Karras broadcasts the activation command, it doesn't transmit out to the city.
It bounces back.
Exactly, bouncing back and trapping the signal and the resulting gas release inside the cathedral itself.
But the sheer scale of Soulforge is overwhelming. The complexity of the security systems, the endless patrols of combat bots, it's too much for one man.
It's an impossible task.
Garrett is precise. He is an unmatched professional, but he is rapidly bleeding out the one resource he cannot steal, cannot pickpocket, and cannot forge: time.
The broadcast sequence has been initiated. The countdown to planetary sterilization is ticking away in Karras' sanctum. Garrett needs a miracle.
He really does.
He needs a localized disruption so massive it rewrites the calculus of Karras' perfect machine.
He needs an intervention. And he gets one, but it comes at an unthinkable, devastating cost. This brings us to the climax, and honestly, if we look at the deep lore of this universe, this is one of the most viscerally beautiful, deeply tragic moments ever recorded: Viktoria's sacrifice.
It is the ultimate collision we discussed earlier, absolute, unbridled chaos violently breaching the walls of absolute order.
Just imagine the pristine, sterile, unyielding metal corridors of Soulforge, the hydraulic presses slamming in perfect time, and suddenly the walls rupture. Viktoria, the pagan dryad, breaches the cathedral.
And not quietly.
No, she doesn't do it with a coordinated army or with quiet, shadowy stealth. She does it with raw, unrestrained, violent nature. Ancient blood magic colliding with steam-powered calculus.
Wood-shattering steel.
Thick, muscular vines tearing through iron plating and ripping security cameras off the walls.
Karras had designed Soulforge to be entirely immune to the outside world. He calculated for thieves, he calculated for city watch sieges. But he could not mathematically account for the sheer self-destructive willpower of a primal force of nature.
It's devastating to visualize. Viktoria isn't just planting seeds. She is literally tearing her own physical form apart.
Yeah.
She ruptures her own circulatory system, using her ancient blood as a hyper-accelerant to rapidly gestate massive, rampant flora. She fills the cavernous, sterile halls of the cathedral with bursting, bleeding, chaotic greenery.
It's beautiful and horrific.
Her roots crush steam pipes. Briars jam the gears of the combat bots. She is forcibly transforming the machine back into a forest, using her own life force, her very essence, as the fertilizer.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture of Karras' master plan, her sacrifice is a stroke of desperate, profound genius. Remember how the necrotic Mutox is designed to function?
Right, it's a catalyst that reacts violently to complex organic cellular structures.
Precisely. Karras engineered the servants' cultivators to trigger the gas release upon detecting the dense organic plant matter he knew the wealthy nobility cultivated in their lavish manors and indoor gardens.
Oh, wow.
By flooding the sterile environment of Soulforge with an overwhelming mass of organic, bleeding plant life, Viktoria is fundamentally altering the environmental baseline of the cathedral.
She's tricking the sensors.
She is turning Karras' own chemical trigger against his sanctuary.
That's brilliant, but it is so deeply tragic. Think about her lore. She lost the Woozy Lord, her deity, in the previous era. She has watched her pagan followers be slaughtered and driven into the sewers by Mechanist buzzsaws.
She's lost everything.
Her invasion of Soulforge is a suicide mission born of absolute grief and defiance. She knows exactly what she's doing. She knows she will not walk out. But her violent, tragic eruption of life creates mass system failures across the factory floor.
Buying Garrett time.
It buys him those precious, agonizing seconds he desperately needs.
The massive influx of organic matter forces a premature trigger in the local systems. Amidst the chaos of crumbling metal and expanding vines, Garrett manages to complete the final reprogramming of the signal towers.
He slips out, sealing the massive, heavy external doors of the cathedral from the outside. He locks the broadcast signal and the impending chemical payload inside Soulforge.
The trap snaps shut, but this time the architect is the one caught inside the box.
Which brings us to the incredibly poetic death of Father Karras. And let's be explicitly clear here, there is no grand final boss battle.
No dramatic showdown.
There is no dramatic sword fight on a rain-slick precipice. The architect of this entire global nightmare goes out in a way that is, well, it's pathetic and deeply, deeply ironic.
It is the tragedy of the master builder realized in full, suffocating under the weight of his own perfection.
Let's break down the exact sequence of his demise. Karras is sealed inside his inner sanctum, a flawless vault within the apse. He designed this glass and steel bunker to be a hermetically sealed environment, protecting himself from the apocalyptic rust gas he was unleashing on the world outside.
Right.
He wanted to sit in pristine, climate-controlled isolation, watching the dials spin while everyone else on the planet turned to dust.
But the variables shifted. Because Garrett successfully redirected the signal towers, the broadcast command didn't transmit to the mansions of the city. It bounced back into Soulforge.
And because Viktoria's sacrifice had flooded the nave and the apse with massive amounts of organic plant matter, the local servants, the ones patrolling inside Soulforge itself, detect the organic material and receive the loop signal.
They activate.
They release the necrotic Mutox right there on the factory floor.
The poetic justice is almost suffocating in its execution. The man who worshipped machines, who so thoroughly despised the weakness of flesh, nature, and unpredictability, is undone by a combination of all three.
It's perfect.
He built a hermetically sealed environment that functioned flawlessly. It kept the mutated rust gas from escaping into the city streets, but it also meant the gas filled his sanctuary to maximum concentration.
Wait, if his bunker was hermetically sealed, how did the gas get to him?
Because the environment was a closed loop. The ventilation systems of Soulforge, designed to cycle air through the complex, pulled the gas directly into his chamber.
Oh, man.
The vines hadn't breached his glass booth, but the air intake systems, operating exactly as he designed them, delivered his own payload straight into his lungs.
He suffocates on his own ambition. The ultimate tech bro accelerationist, erased by the flawless execution of his own code.
It's incredibly fitting.
He inhales the mutox, the chemical reaction triggers, and his flesh, the very flesh he loathed, oxidizes. He turns into the exact same red dust he wished upon the rest of humanity. It is the Sanguine Metal Dawn, but it only rises over a population of 1.
It is a profound, terrifying statement on the hubris of absolute control. He attempted to engineer a world devoid of variables, and he was ultimately destroyed by the one variable he fundamentally refused to respect.
The chaotic, self-sacrificing, adaptive nature of life itself.
Exactly.
So the grinding hydraulic presses finally stutter and stop. The hiss of the gas fades into the ventilation shafts. The red dust settles on the cold steel floor. Soulforge Cathedral is a tomb.
The silence he wanted.
The absolute perfect silence that Karras craved is finally his, permanently. But outside those heavy sealed doors, the city breathes. It survives.
It survives, yes. But we must critically analyze the state of the world left behind in the wake of this averted apocalypse. It is not a triumphant victory parade.
No, not at all.
It is a bitter, bruised survival.
It really is. You look out over the city skyline, And it is a deeply cynical, polluted place. The Hammerites are fractured, their influence diminished.
The pagans are in deep mourning.
Having lost their deity in the previous era, and now having sacrificed their strongest leader, Viktoria. The Mechanist threat has been violently dissolved, but their smog, their abandoned factories, and their rusted, hulking legacies still choke the skyline. Nobody really won this war.
The city just barely avoided losing everything.
And yet, despite the scars, the overarching cosmological principles maintained. Balance. Which brings us to the Watchers in the Shadows, the ancient secret society that pulls the strings of history, the Keepers.
The Keepers step out of the shadows as the dust of the Metal Age settles.
And looking at this from a high-level narrative perspective, I have to ask, what does this all mean for Garrett? He just saved the world. Twice now, if we count the Dark Project.
Yeah, he has.
But he's no hero. He's a cynic, a thief who tried to walk away from every single responsibility he was ever handed. Why is he the focal point of this entire universe?
That is precisely why he is so vital to the Keepers' philosophy. The Keepers realize that Garrett, this unpredictable, selfish, deeply human variable, is the ultimate fulcrum of balance. The Keepers understand that a world of absolute order, as Karras envisioned, is sterile tyranny and death. Conversely, a world of absolute chaos, as the Trickster wanted previously, is feral madness, blood, and destruction.
And Garrett refuses to align with either extreme. He operates entirely in the gray area.
Exactly. His very refusal to be categorized, his stubborn insistence on his own independence, is the only thing keeping the world from collapsing entirely in one direction or the other.
He just wants to be left alone.
He doesn't fight for grand, sweeping ideals. He fights for survival, for his own begrudging, highly specific loyalties, and sometimes, quite frankly, just because someone annoyed him or got in his way.
He is the necessary flaw in the system, the human element that refuses to be programmed by the Mechanists and refuses to be consumed by the Pagans. And in doing so, simply by existing as a rogue agent, he keeps the pendulum of the world from swinging too far into the abyss.
The Keepers know that as long as Garrett is out there in the shadows, picking locks, stealing from the corrupt rich, defying the powerful, and refusing to kneel to either gods of metal or gods of wood, the city will endure.
It will be bruised, polluted, and deeply flawed, but it will be alive.
Yes.
It's an incredible, lonely place to leave Garrett. Standing in the smog of a newly rusted age, a reluctant savior who just wants to go back to his apartment, pay his rent, and count his stolen loot.
But as we know all too well, the shadows in this city are deep.
And they are very, very old.
The Metal Age may have rusted away into history, but the Keepers have archives that stretch back to the very foundation stones of the world. And not all of their prophecies have been fulfilled.
Let's just slow down for a second. The tone is shifting. The grinding, scorching machinery of the Mechanists is dead.
It's quiet.
The Nona's fires have cooled. But if you just listen closely, beneath the cobblestone streets, beneath the old forgotten quarters, the tone of the city is moving away from the deafening roar of industrial progress and sinking into the cold, quiet hum of ancient, esoteric magic.
The stone itself is starting to wake up.
The hidden glyphs are beginning to glow again in the dark.
And the crushing weight of unread Keeper prophecies is pressing down on the architecture of the city. A new dark age is waiting to be written.
The gears have stopped turning, but the shadows are growing much, much longer. And there are places in the city where even a master thief fears to tread. Places that remember, places that don't just hold the past, but trap it.
If I just whisper the name,
Shalebridge Cradle.
a cursed word, an architecture of pure nightmare that consumes those who cross its threshold.
That uneasy, desperate feeling creeping up your spine right now, the chill in the room, hold on to that. Because we are far, far from done with the Master Thief. Until next time, watch your step, stay out of the light, and remember, the archives never close.